Hey everyone, this is Red Pill Mormon. We're going to start a new chapter today. Chapter 16 is called Creating Plants and Animals, and that's chapter 16 of the book Mysteries of Creation, which you can read at ogdenkraut.com. That's OGDENKRAUT.com. You can also read it um, in the videos, I guess. So, today is December 1st, 2025. It's a Monday, and I am headed to Coca-Cola in Salt Lake City, Utah, and then I'm going to go back and get a different trailer that's already been loaded for me in Price, Utah, and I'm going to go to Pepsi in Nampa, Idaho. So this will be a full reading of this chapter, and then I'll do a little conclusion video on this, and then um, we're going to go over each of the pages individually, and then I'll give a video for each of the pages individually, and I'll post them as they come out. So, all right, well, let's get into this. Thank you for watching. Thank you for reading along. Thank you for your comments, your likes, your shares. Um, you can follow these things on TikTok by following me at Red Pill Mormon, on YouTube, and on Rumble. This is under Zion's Redemption Radio Network. Okay, we'll see you in just a minute.
Creating Plants and Animals, Chapter 16 of Mysteries of Creation. Pages 154 to 159. Full reading. Once the world was built and ready for habitation, the problem arose of how to put plants and animal upon it. Some ministers preach that these things came about by some form of spontaneous combustion or magical creation from nothing. But God operates on very genuine and scientific principles, the same that man is learning to use. President Brigham Young declared, "But it is hard to get the people to believe that God is a scientific character, that he lives by science or strict law, that by this he is, and by law he was made what he is, and will remain to all eternity, because of his faithful adherence to law. He is their author. Our spirits are his. He begot them. We are his children. He set the machine in motion to produce our tabernacles. The laws of propagation are no exception. All living things must come forth by these reproductive laws and principles, each after its own kind. Every plant, insect, bird, animal and human follow these eternal laws of reproduction. The prophet Joseph Smith declared, God has made certain decrees which are fixed and immovable. For instance, the oak of the forest, the fruit of the tree, the herb of the field, all bear a sign that seed hath been planted there, for it is a decree of the Lord that every tree, plant, and herb bearing seed should bring forth of its kind, and cannot come forth after any other law or principle." In a footnote, Joseph Fielding Smith commented on this statement by the prophet, this very positive statement by the prophet, that every tree, plant, and herb, and evidently every other creature, cannot produce except after its kind, is in harmony not only with the scriptures, but also with all known facts in the world. John Taylor agreed, the animal and vegetable creations are governed by certain laws, and are composed of certain elements peculiar to themselves. This applies to man, to beasts, fowls, fish, and creeping things, to the insects and to all animated nature, each one possessing its own distinct features, each requiring a specific sustenance, each having an organism and faculties governed by proscribed laws to perpetuate its own kind. Plant life. So there is ample proof that all the plants found on the earth were the product of seed of its own kind. Then how did that seed first come upon the earth? Brigham Young and Heber C. Kimball both answered this question. They, Adam and Eve, came here, organized the raw material, and arranged in their order the herbs of the field, the trees, the apple, the peach, the plum, the pear, and every other fruit that is desirable and good for man. The seed was brought from another sphere, and planted in this earth. Shall I say that the seeds of vegetables were planted here by the characters that framed and built this earth? That the seeds of every plant composing the vegetable kingdom were brought from another world? This would be news to many of you. Who brought them here? It matters little to us whether it was John, James, William, Adam, or Bartholomew who brought them, but it was some being who had power to frame this earth with its seas, valley, mountains, and rivers and cause it to teem with vegetable and animal life. Mankind are here because they are offspring of parents who were first brought here from another planet, and power was given them to propagate their species, and they are commanded to multiply and replenish the earth. Did you find the seed? No, you did not. The Lord found it. When he came here he brought it with him, and he told his sons to sow it, and let it increase. They were also instructed to plant every kind of vegetable, likewise the forest and the fruit trees, and they actually brought from heaven every variety of fruit, of the seeds of vegetables, the seeds of flowers, and planted them in this earth on which we dwell. And I will say more, the spot chosen for the Garden of Eden was Jackson County, in the state of Missouri, where Independence now stands. Father Adam was instructed to multiply and replenish the earth, to make it beautiful and glorious, to make it, in short, like unto the garden from which the seeds were brought to plant the Garden of Eden. B. H. Roberts also mentions that the seeds for this earth were brought from an older earth. We are informed that the Lord God made every plant of the field before it was in the earth, and every herb before it grew upon some older earth, and the seeds thereof or the plants themselves were brought to our earth and made to grow, so likewise man and his helpmeet were brought from some older world to our own, to people it with their children. Brigham Young explained the eternal nature of the fruits and their seeds. Then, can you by any process of reasoning or argument, tell whether it was an apple that bore the first seed of an apple, or an apple seed that made the first apple? Or, whether it was the seed of a squash that made the first squash, or a squash that bore the first squash seed? Such abstruse questions belong to the philosophy of the world. In reality there never was and never will be a time when there was not both the apple and the apple seed. Animal life. So the earth was made beautiful with all its varied kinds of vegetation. But animals must be brought here, too. How were they created? What was their origin on this earth? They must follow the same laws and principles pertaining to their species that the plants do in theirs. They reproduce their own kind. But there must be some here on earth in order to produce more. The following quotations show that they also were brought here from some other world. A royal planter now descends from yonder world of older date, and bearing in his hand the choice seeds of the older paradise, he plants them in the virgin soil of our new-born earth. They grow and flourish there, and, bearing seed, replant themselves, and thus clothe the naked earth with scenes of beauty and the air with fragrant incense. Ripening fruits and herbs at length abound. When lo! From yonder world is transferred every species of animal life. Male and female, they come, with blessings on their heads, and a voice is heard again, be fruitful and multiply. Earth, its mineral, vegetable and animal wealth, its paradise prepared, down comes from yonder world on high a Son of God, with his beloved spouse. And thus a colony from heaven, it may be from the sun, is transplanted on our soil. After the earth was made, then there was a garden spot selected, and the Lord commanded some of his associates to go and plant it, and to cause all kinds of vegetation to grow, and fruits of every description. Some suppose the Lord commanded all these things to come out of the earth. Yes, he did, after the seeds were put in the earth, and he blessed the earth, and the vegetation that was in the earth. When all these things were done, the garden was beautified, and made pure and clean and holy and sanctified, and then the next thing was to bring forth the animal creation, but the animals were not brought there until the vegetation was planted and grown. Only a God could bring plants and animals here. Here then is the secret to the mystery behind the story of the Genesis creation. All the varieties of vegetation and animal life were brought here. They were not suddenly created out of nothing. Someone brought them here from another world. And it has already been shown that a resurrected glorified being, a God, is the only one with the power and ability to perform such a task, as a spirit cannot manipulate, control or create physical and tangible matter. Nor can a spirit create a physical body. If this were possible, then the devil would be able to create a body for himself and his hosts, and then perhaps a moral world of his own. In the scriptures, the Lord explains that a spirit cannot hold anything physical. Jesus said, "Handle me, and see, for a spirit hath not flesh and bones, as ye see me have." If he were just a spirit at that time, they would not have been able to touch or feel him. A spirit cannot make any contact with something physical. For instance, the Lord gave a key to this limitation of spirits. If a spirit would make an appearance to a person, the Lord said, if it be the devil as an angel of light, when you ask him to shake hands, he will offer you his hand, and you will not feel anything. Realizing that spirits cannot touch or hold anything of a physical nature, is a key in understanding the type of being who brought the plants and animals from another world to this one.
So basically, on this in this chapter, we're just learning about how the plants and the animals got here. That they were not spoken into existence. That they were brought from from an older Earth. That older Earth is our pre-existent Earth, and that's what I'm telling you. That's not in the chapter, but um, I really like this chapter because it talks about those things. But I like to speculate that um, that the pyramids were actually landing platforms for these gigantic arcs to come down and to populate this earth with the plants and the animals that Adam or Michael chose to bring here. So, and then he's the one that organized them, or and organized the different places where they would go and all of that fun stuff. So, anyway, I don't know if that's true. I just think it's I think it's true. I don't know that it's true. Um, one other thing. So, God is a God of science. Like God the Eternal, and the beginning of the Elohim, they learned through trial and error what the laws of the universe are, and that those laws are eternal. And, people are like, oh, well, uh, they think of God as like the great bearded man in the sky, and like he speaks and everything just happens. Now, they're actually a civilization of extremely advanced technology and extremely advanced capacity for understanding the laws of the universe, which God revealed to me when He showed me the intelligence in the beginning of spirit, that the elements are eternal and that the laws of the universe are eternal. They actually didn't understand them all in the beginning, and there was a beginning. The intelligence may be eternal, but the first of the spirits to become self aware and to help others to become self aware, they helped each other and they learned. Um, they eventually took on the form of bodies with 5 fingers and 5 toes and a head and 2 arms and 2 legs and whatnot. And this is the best form for us to be able to interact with the physical world. In the beginning, they were not physical. They are now. They've figured out a way in order to manipulate the elements in order to create these organisms that we're in, and I think it's cool. Like God showed me many years ago in this very strange dream, and I don't know if it was God or not. I believe. that it was inspired of God. But so it was kind of cool. Like I had this dream that that inside of my head was a being, and the being was inside. This is gonna sound funny, and I think there's a movie about this. Maybe I'm not exactly sure. Maybe it's Men in Black. You know, they've got that alien that's like inside of the head of a machine that looks just like a human. Well, this machine that we're in, this biological machine that we're in, is controlled by an eternal being, a spirit. And without the spirit, this being or this body does not exist. This body that you're looking at right now is a machine to help me interact with the physical world. A machine to help me interact with the physical world. But we're not this person. We are not this being. Like each of us have different bodies, we have different looks, whatever, and we over time have chosen, I believe, the way we want to be, the way we want to look like in our perfect form, not in the imperfect world that we live in now with all the problems that we have, um, with all kinds of different problems at that. But that we, in the beginning, when God showed me what the intelligence was and what the spirits were after the spirits became self-aware, we are light. We in the beginning, when our spirits became self-aware, we went from an intelligence which was an orb of energy and light. And when we are born in the spirit, or when we become self-aware and the male and the female spirit are born, we are orbs of light. And I believe that the animals are like this, that the plants are like this, that the worlds are like this, because we believe that the spirit of the earth is a spirit, like it has a spirit, it has a life. And we know, at least I do, that everything is created or organized spiritually before it is organized physically. So, anyway, I just really enjoy this chapter. It's not one of my favorite chapters. I think my favorite chapter is the one about Jehovah, um, and then the Only Begotten, and like the chapters that we got into previous to this one. Those are some of my favorites. But it's kind of interesting. I don't usually start a book series in the middle of the book. But what brought me to this is, okay, I've read this book on my podcasts in the past. Um, and I've read some of it in my YouTube videos. But what brought me to this is, actually it was Shane Baldwin driving me insane because I kept on telling him Jesus and Jehovah are not the same person. And he's like, he actually interacted with me. Well, he's interacted with me here and there, but he's like, that's just the speculation that you have and the doctrines of men mingled with scripture. And I'm like, no, but he won't actually. I don't know if he watches these things. I wish he did, you know, like get some pushback to your ideas. Like, and I don't mind pushback on my ideas either. But and I think it creates healthy conversation, where you don't set yourself up as an individual who cannot be questioned, which some individuals are leaning towards that, you know. But the whole idea that Jesus is Jehovah and Jehovah is the only begotten. Jehovah was an only begotten. He is an only begotten, but he was the redeemer on an older earth, and he doesn't quite understand that. A lot of people don't. But this whole idea that the only begotten has a son because of Moses chapter 1 verse 6 and right around there, Jehovah is actually speaking to Moses, and Jehovah says, Moses, you are in the very similitude of my only begotten son. Well, oh, Jesus has an only begotten son? No, Jehovah does. And it's not who you think it is. Not only is Jehovah not who you think it is, but the only begotten son of Jehovah isn't who you think it is. So all these things um, are the that they start with a specific belief that's not exactly correct, and then they build upon that, and that's how you get false doctrine, and that's how you get false theologies. And what my job is to help bring you back to the first fruits of the restoration and to also testify the things that I know, not because of speculation. Although some of the things I talk about, and I try to, if there's things that I'm not exactly sure on, I try to say, hey, like this is something that I'm not exactly sure about, but here's my thoughts on it. But but a lot of these things I know to be true because I have the knowledge that God has given me firsthand of what these things are and how these things work. And I'm not building my foundation on the sands of speculation. I have built my foundation on the rock of revelation, which I want everybody to do that for themselves. Not like a true prophet teaches the things that they have been taught. And then a true prophet will tell others that this is what I've been taught. Here's something that you can look at. But you need to go on your own and find out if these things are true for yourself. Because the prophet, the key holder, is not the one who you have to go through to receive your salvation. Jesus employeth no servant there. So what does he do with these prophets? The prophets are messengers to guide the people in all truth and to teach the people how to go to the Father in the name of the Son so that they can understand the truth as it is according to God's interpretation of Scripture, not a prophet's interpretation and not your own interpretation. And even if a prophet or even the Father tells you something that's exactly 100% pure truth, because we are fallen man and women, we can take those things and come up with ideas and interpretations that are not correct. So, what I do, because I know that these things happen, I take everything, especially scripture, the words of people who proclaim to be prophets, anything that that might be inspirational or um, not inspirational. Anyway, so what I do is I go to the Father with everything. Even his own words. When I receive thus saith the Lord revelations, and he's like, I need you to sit down and I need you to write these things. And I'll sit down and write these things. And like a lot of the revelations that I receive, well, plenty of them, I won't even understand them fully until I really read them and study them out. And I'm like, oh, wow. And like, there's sometimes when, like, I will receive a revelation, and years down the road, I'll be reading that revelation that God has personally given to me, and I'll see things in it that I didn't even understand before, and it's awesome. But when I receive the revelation, I ask, is this correct? And line upon line, I ask, is this correct? And then I ask what the meaning of these things are. And as I go line upon line to understand the meaning, I ask, is this correct? And the Spirit will either increase and I will have a spiritual confirmation, which is how you build yourself upon the rock of revelation, or the Spirit will decrease and I will have to go back to the Father and say, okay, I understand that what I thought about this or how I wrote this down or whatever it is, that it's not exactly correct. Will you please correct me in these things? And sometimes he will. Well, especially if it's written Revelation, he will. But sometimes um, I will not get anything, and I'll have to study it out further to the best of my ability. And then I will take whatever I've learned, understanding that the thing that I believed before wasn't exactly correct, or was completely incorrect, and then I will go back and I will take that to the Father and I'll say, okay, this is what I believe about this. Like, for instance, I've talked about this case of reincarnation, where I brought all this stuff up to the Father and I was like, this seems like a true doctrine, and then he corrected me. I had studied it out to the best of my ability, but I was wrong in my conclusions. And then he taught me. And then he taught me a whole bunch of stuff. It was really cool. So, and we should all, I hope that I can be an example to you of how you can go about learning things, and building yourself upon the rock of revelation. So God, He looks at us. Um, he's no respecter of persons, but He does give each of us different roles. We are foreordained to help our brothers and sisters to be able to come to Him. By either calling to repentance or teaching knowledge or warning or whatever it is. And I have been given a role. I was foreordained to be His witness. Does that make me better than you? No, it doesn't. But it does mean that I have that role, and also, um, well, this might sound arrogant, but I have progressed further up the ladder in the progression of the gods than the rest of you. Jesus has progressed further than me, Michael's progressed further than him, and Jehovah has progressed further than him. It's just the reality of the matter. But we all want you to come to the level that we're at and go beyond the level that we're at. But that takes time. This takes multiple mortal probations, eternal lives, trial and error, experience, and action. So, and I want to help lift everyone. You know, a uh, a rising tide lifts all boats, and I want all boats to be risen in the tide, not to sink, because they're anchored to some false tradition that actually damns them. So, whether you realize it or not, all they who believe the lie, and the lie can be and is often false doctrine, the traditions of men, whatever it is, all they who believe a lie receive strong delusion, that they all might be damned because they did not love the truth enough to go to God to find out what the truth was from Him. So, anyway. Well, I'll start on the next one in a little bit. I'm actually going through the Red Narrows, which is on US 6. And this section of road between Price, Utah, and Spanish Fork, Utah, has been the scene of an untold amount of accidents. But I remember back in 2004 or 2005, when I was living down in St. George, hauling gypsum out of Black Rock, Arizona, which is just south of St. George, out on the in the I don't know what they call it, the wilderness of whatever, the desert out there. Um, and I was hauling gypsum, and I heard, and I saw a video on it later. Um, this area that I just passed through, it's 40 miles an hour. Somebody was coming up from Salt Lake with a load of dynamite and blasting caps. And his team driver was in the back, and he decided he didn't care about what those signs say, that you go 40 miles an hour in this turn. There's a reason for that. Anyway, he flipped his truck over in that turn. Truck caught on fire. Um, both the drivers the one in the sleeper and the one in the driver's seat that actually flipped the truck over. Tried to get people away from it. Um, like trying to get people not to pass, and people were just passing this truck that's on fire, like not listening to the drivers. And luckily, nobody got killed, but that truck blew up. And the only thing left of that truck was some scrap metal, and the only thing recognizable was one of the differentials, the axles. If you part of that was still recognizable. That truck was evaporated. The hole that that explosion created was 45 feet deep and 75 feet wide. It completely wiped out the whole road, and if you can see it right there, there's the rail line. It wiped out the rail line too. And it took a while to get that road fixed. But that guy who was driving too fast with his hazmat in a turn which was only 40 miles an hour, and he decided, oh, I'm going to go faster because somehow unprofessional truck drivers who do not obey the speed limits are still issued hazmat licenses, like I have. And, man, like, we live in a lawless society, like, obey the laws, people. Like, I don't know. I can get on my high horse about that. I just wish everybody would just obey the laws and stop breaking laws, even though you think they're all minor and whatever. Just obey the laws, you know. Like, okay, so you go a little bit over the speed limit, because these vehicles, like, I've got mine set on 60 miles an hour. We're in a 65. I'm going on a slight downhill, and it's kind of cool because I can set my jake brake to go off at 5 miles an hour. So when I hit 65, which is the speed limit, the jake brake will come on and it'll keep me around 65, 66, 67. Right now I'm going 62.8 miles an hour. But that's how I live my life. I try to obey the laws, um, the laws of man, the laws of God. I see everything in black and white, not literally, but figuratively. Everything it's either good or bad, right? And I try to obey the laws and not get into any trouble and not uh, hurt other people or take away their rights. But it just watching people and how they are. Like, today's kind of a light day. It's Monday, so there's not a ton of traffic, but you're gonna watch right here. If you sat here and watched this little window all day, you'd see people passing me all the time. I'm going 65.3 miles an hour right now, and they're probably doing about 69, 70. And there's another one behind them, and they're the ones that aren't doing too bad. But then you got people, and this highway right here, like, it used to be the most dangerous highway of deaths per capita for people traveling the road of any highway in the United States. I remember reading a Reader's Digest about this road, and Interstate 35 between um, the Dallas Fort Worth area down to San Antonio was the worst interstate, but this was the worst highway, and it's still pretty bad. They've made a bunch of improvements on it since I was a young truck driver, but it's still pretty bad, and they don't even patrol it hardly at all. So people just think this is a free for all, and hey, if I'm going to do 75, 85, 90, 100, and I've seen them do that, and I've got this radar on the front of my truck that when they come over, I can see exactly how fast they're going. I wish I could turn people in, but you know, that would create more work for a lazy police force that doesn't want to do anything but grab low-hanging fruit, or lazy DAs, district attorneys, whatever. Anyway, so enjoy this video. I'll get on it and do one page at a time with my commentary. And thank you for everyone who watches these things. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Share and subscribe, comment. Um, and the comments I will try to reply to all the comments. So, and if you don't believe me, that's fine. You don't have to believe everything I say, but do you believe some of what I say? Are these things educational to you? Like, I, I want growth. I want people to progress. I want people to understand and to have knowledge. And if these videos, if you're not 100% convinced that I am who I say I am, that's fine. That's between you and God. But are you learning at least? And if you're learning, let's have a conversation. You know, share with other people. Let's have these conversations, and take the text, take the quotes, share them with people. I hope that you do, and I'll get on that. I'll get on that recording now. I'm going down Billy's Hill now, so and everything's covered in snow. It's fun. And my windows are still salty because of last night. Last night I did between 40 to 50 miles an hour in most of it, down to 30 and 25 in some of it. It was an icy, nasty, snowy nightmare last night. But you know what? I was driving at night and not very many people were on the road, so that's the way I like it. Anyway, I hope that you all have a good day, and catch you later. God be with you till we meet again. Bye.